and we are in California, about to have a conversation with somebody tell me that they, hey, it's funny, so that's okay. And as from is one of the great wineries of Chile, lots of different things to talk about, or a podcast episode. So I want you to log in and talk to Burrier, who's the architect. He was on the show about a year ago. Amazing conversation about how California wine became world years afterwards. But I think you'll find that it's Wine Talks, of course, is available, podcast hangouts, as well as spot, not the reason we're here. Great conversation. I wish I recorded it all going on in Chile and the Caribbean wine for Concha y Toro. The show. What are we going to say? I would have said, yeah, bienvenido.
Bienvenido.
But there's a word just like the French is, right?
Yeah.
And so we were talking about how one of the two languages you probably
you can use some word in French,
the roots.
Portuguese.
Well, since you've got a full trip.
Yeah.
And now what's next?
Yesterday was
Sacramento. Oh, you see the Corti brother? See Daryl Corti? It's a very famous store there.
to a restaurant called The Root.
Famous too?
Yeah.
Okay.
On Saturday. No morning.
Oh, I'm glad. So 1 week.
So
That's
2
hard
weeks.
work.
Yeah.
What's happening back home while you're having fun? No, kidding.
It's super cold.
Yeah,
Now
it's-
it's cold.
that's
So
right. That's a good
I'm with the warm weather.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
I
but
was-
it's fun. Chile is freezing.
So for the listeners of South America, of course, are below the opposite clock that we are, winter time, and the nothing's happening.
Not it's
They're
happening
pruning.
now. Yeah.
Come to bud breaks when we're
In September.
I want to talk understand because it's an interesting. We spoke about it a little bit. But for one, in winemakers that they on the east side of the Andes, and you got this little sliver. It's tell me about the geography of Chile.
Along the southern this country of South America, narrow.
Yes.
So the longest is like 1,000 miles.
So-
The total,
So
yeah.
to speak.
And 65 miles to miles. Yeah.
To
Okay.
100.
Yeah.
Because, well, first of all, I understand that the division or the sort of the property line between Argentina and Chile was really done by the church in the 1800s. And in fact, I found the document by the Pope of the church down there where they had decreed this. So that's, it makes a ton of sense because the water from the Andes is sort of split in half, right? The Argentinians get half, and you guys get half, and everybody's happy, theoretically. But to only be 65 miles wide in some places is pretty amazing. You can go from the beach to the base of the foothills.
Yeah.
There are places you can see the ocean basically from the
The mountains.
Yeah.
Wow. And so you can do that in an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, there's only one other place I know in the world that you can ski and surf in the same days, and you're here. You're at the other place in Southern California, which you
Well,
can do.
I think is the other similarity to California that most of people their surprise is the temperature in terms of you can be in California, the temperature you can be in 100 degrees and then drive 20 minutes and temperature drop to 65.
That's true.
And that's, I think, another uniqueness of Chile and California only, where you can, the temperature can vary dramatically in a half an hour drive.
Yeah, and I think we're going to talk about how that impacts the grapes of potentially some of the vineyards, because we were featuring Chilean wines in the 70s. I have a bottle from, we only started in 1972.
Yeah.
And my dad's store in Palos Verdes was very well known for its wine selection, one of the top 5 in LA at the time. And so when I found this reserve of wines that my dad had featured, we found a 77. We'll find I can't remember the brand now, but we found a 77. So I don't know when Chilean wine started coming to America, but it couldn't have been a whole lot before that.
Well, they were around at the end of the 60s. They were some to, I would say, California and New York only, mainly, for like small importers. But I think by the 80s, they start to getting very popular. That was, but what you had probably was very of a really small.
It was small.
A small export. I think Chile. What happened? Going back to your question about geography, Chile is an island. It's an island. If you think has the driest desert in the world in the north, the Antarctica in the south, the Andes Mountains, which is the second mountain range highest, and the Himalayas is the only bigger.
Yeah.
And the Pacific Ocean. So we were very isolated. So it's not like going, but again, it's a small country. So when the industry started to grow, we needed to export was the solution. So but that took, again, the 80s when start more, again, we were making also better wines.
Yes.
When you're exporting, you need to compete with
That's true. That's a good point. We were doing them, and in fact, the one I remember, because I bought it, was the 87 Los Vascos, which was the last year when the Chileans made the wines, and then the French took over. And I thought, okay, that's a fascinating thing that there was investment by the French coming to a place like Chile. So let's just kind of start from the north to the south for the listeners to understand sort of, if they look at a label of wine from Chile, and you brought the unrated, which is a gorgeous bottle of wine, which is basically all of Chile, which is like saying California, but very expressive. So if I start from the north, what's the furthest north I can grow? Is it Limari?
Limari. Limari is the further north.
And that's the coolest.
And also it's because you have to think about that when you go more north in Chile, it's warmer. It's the opposite like here. Yeah, it's the opposite like here.
Well, but also, you think I'd know that by now.
But also you can find a fresh area because of the influence of the Pacific Ocean, because our ocean is very cold.
Yes.
It's like 50 Fahrenheit. So
wow, that's very cold.
The vineyard that we produce in Limari, they are, I don't know how many miles from the Pacific, like 5 miles from the Pacific to the vineyard. So every day
that has
fog,
influence.
Yeah, every day the fog goes inland and refresh, but also you have a very sunny and shiny days after the fog.
And grapes like that.
Yeah, the Chardonnay and Pinot Noir loves that. Yeah.
I'm afraid my wetsuit that I use here in Southern California is only good for 60 degrees.
Yeah.
And so 50 might be a little cold next time I come visit you.
You're right. You need
the
thicker one.
They call it 3/4.
But in the North Pole and it's important for think about Phoenix in the summer, but with natural air conditioning because of the ocean.
Wow, that's
it's
interesting.
It's a desert. So it's even though it's the northern, which should be warmer because we're the opposite, it's the coldest. Because you're at sea level right by the ocean. No, nothing protecting it.
So
in those places we don't have the Andes and the coastal range. So it's flat.
That's another interesting comparison between California and Chile besides the surf ski thing. And that is, I can't think of any other wine growing region except Hawaii maybe that has the influence of the Pacific Ocean, because there are many wine districts in California that get marine breezes from the Pacific Ocean.
Yeah.
And that's interesting, even though it's a different part of a different hemisphere.
It's like Santa Maria in a way.
Yeah,
When you get
right.
that colder, but it's sunny.
It's not desert, but it's still interesting. You get that marine influence. Okay, so we're going to start in Limerie, and we're going to head south. What would be the next? I have many wines from Acuanga.
Aconcagua.
That too, and that in Casablanca. Would those be the next? I mean, is Chuapa a district for wine? Chuapa.
Chuapa is a Chuapa.
I've never tasted a wine from there, but I have tasted from Casablanca, San Antonio, Maipo. So we were headed south. Casablanca, then San Antonio, Maipo.
Yeah, but you have to think about the different influence that the valley has. For example, you talk about Casablanca. If you go north, south, Casablanca goes first, but have the influence from the Pacific Ocean.
Yes, it does.
It's more a coast area.
It is.
But if you talk about Maipo, they are in the same line, but Maipo has the influence from the Andes mountain.
I can see that in the map.
Yeah, and also it's between, because we have the Andes mountain and we have our coastal range. So Maipo is in between Andes and the coastal range. So
that's interesting.
It's like we have like a barrier. The coastal range is our barrier between the Pacific, the ocean, and the Andes, because we also have valley that we call in between two ranges.
Do you think that these districts, and let's just take that example exactly, the Casablanca versus Maipo, the Casablanca being closer to the coast, Maipo being closer to the Andes, were those defined back in the day as viticultural areas, or were they just based on a city? I mean, why did they change? Like, if you go to Burgundy, the monks figured out that Chasson Montrachet is different than Chambord.
Your answer is both answers. The newer valleys, like Limerie, like Casablanca, they're defined in terms of viticulture, in terms of making wine. They were terroirs. They were discovered by winemakers, looking for areas that you will find a special, that the grape will, we found it for Chardonnay in Limerie or Sauvignon Blanc in Casablanca in the coast. So those were newer valleys with that, based on that objective. The older valleys were more defined by cities, by like closer to Santiago. Maipo is closer, is the valley that is Maipo, the capital of Chile, is there. So they were grown by there. And of course, with the time, the biggest change is the definition of the right varietal. Like, you might have planted, Chile was mostly planted with Cabernet Sauvignon and Sauvignon Blanc.
Right,
So at the end, but I think that will be the difference. The more traditional valleys, they were like you said, but the newer, they were winemakers looking for areas to grow better wine, to grow better grapes.
That's very interesting. I'm going to rush through the rest of it because we have so much to talk about. I don't want to hang on this too long because there's districts. I want to talk about your career. I want to talk about your career. And just this conversation alone is going to lead us to this new world, old world conversation, which is a very important conversation. So we're going to head south. We're going to go to Colchagua. Is Marchigay?
Marchigüe.
That too. When you study French, I study French like every morning. It's hard to switch. Curacao, Maule. I have not heard of Itata.
Yes.
Is that a wine district as well?
Also.
So we're almost to the bottom of Chile here, and Bio.
Bio. For us is our southern part of viticulture.
And then Malleco.
Malleco, yeah. It's close to Bio.
So, bio means organic in most European languages. Is that meant to be?
No, but it's
there's nothing to do with it.
No.
It's the name of the region.
It's the name of the region.
And mostly this name of regions are based on rivers. Because at the end, the rivers which go from the Andes to the ocean, they are defining this because at the end the river bring the fresh air from both, from the Andes at the end from the ocean. So that define the agricultural area. First is the water, which is needed, of course, and then is the temperature kind of control. So at the end, those two, the rivers mostly that are name of the growing the growing areas in Chile. So Biobío is actually one of the biggest rivers we have in Chile.
What is the government of Chile? Is it democracy? It's a democracy?
Democracy. Yeah.
Democracy.
Okay, I'm going to stop that conversation there. It's not a political show, you know. This is
No,
strictly
No, but
about
it's a democracy for, I think, the last
Okay.
40 years. 40
Okay,
years,
great.
yeah.
That's great. Let's talk about Isabel and Sebastian for a second. Isabel, you are I read a lot of interviews about what you've done and how you've done this, and why you came to this. But I want you to tell the listeners, you know, how you got involved with wine. Why did you get involved with wine, and what? This is a big question. Then why is it so interesting to you?
Yeah, because but my family is also they are involved in the wine industry. So for me to be in the wine and making wine and goes everything behind like the nature, I love it since my entire life. So for me it's very familiar that. So I study agriculture in the Catholic University in Chile, and when I have to decide the specialize in the university, because the agriculture have the, I don't know, like the animal side, the viticulture, fruit, and all the things, and I want to be like a viticulture. I want to work in the vineyard, inside the vineyard. But one of my uncles said, but if you want to be a viticulture, you have to understand how to make a wine, because it's not the same if you grow a wine, a grape to eat it.
Yes.
It's completely different than the grapes for wine.
For sure.
So you need to understand first how to make a wine. So because of that, I specialize in winemaking.
You know, us uncles are very wise people.
Yeah.
I always want to be that uncle that shares some wisdom that helps somebody with their career or with
But
their
it's
outlook.
completely true, because today I understand how to make wine, and I'm looking for different place. Like we are talking, that you need to understand what is your goal in terms of wine, and then you're gonna understand how to grow the grapes and everything, and the vineyard, how to manage the vineyard.
Do you think Chile is generally more? I don't mean organic in the terms of today's definition when it comes to organic farming, all that, but more organic in its lifestyle than other parts of the world, even Europe, in that it's South America. It's now it's a democracy. Do we generally not process as much? Do we generally have better fruits and vegetables? Do we play with food there? Do we play with wine, or do we take what the land gives us and share that?
I think nowadays, we are very respectful about that the land give us, and also, like Sebastian said, Chile is, for us, is like an island. So we are very isolated. So the way that we can manage our vineyard is not using too much things. At the end,
Yes.
if we are very preventive in some ways, we have to use specific things for growing grapes. But at the end, we are very respectful in terms.
And I think to give you your answer, we are for our economy, export is key, being such a small country. So the only way to, an agriculture, we don't have oil. I think, at the end, it's what you have, what you become.
That's true. That's a good point.
And since
we don't have oil.
when you go to a supermarket, sometimes of the year, Chile is so much present with all the fruits,
Yes.
with all the seafood.
Yes.
A lot of the seafood you get here is from Chile. So they're all natural products that at the end, when coming to Chile, one of the biggest felonies you can have is bringing fresh fruit from other countries.
Oh, yeah.
So we're very protected in keeping everything safe and healthy.
Yes.
And I think that's kind of who we are as a country.
Well, culturally, it's an important thing, and I'd have this conversation mostly about Europe, but I want to pose the question for Chileans. In America, because it's one of the new worlds, and we'll define that in a minute. we've lost in the 50s and 60s. We lost this cultural value of foods because we built highways, and you could go to the same restaurant in Massachusetts or Florida as you can go to in Los Angeles and eat the same food. And so we lost this sort of cultural regionality of food and of wine, and it's starting to come back. We're starting to express ourselves better, particularly through food, that way. Do you feel the Chilean culture is preserved now in this, let's say, the 21st century? Do you feel like we still have Chilean culture from the north to the south? If I go there, do I experience Chile, or am I experiencing?
I would say you will experience the flavors. Chile is about the natural flavors. You know,
Yes.
we don't. But I think when you were in the 60s, because now with the, I don't know if you call it globalization or easier access to different things.
That's right.
Today, we can have cheeses from all around the world.
Right.
Before, we didn't have access.
You didn't do that.
So today you experience more flavors from different places. But
That's
at the
true.
end, when people ask me, how about this Chilean food? I say Chilean food when you have, if you have fish, it's a fish. It's not the fish with the sauce. You know, it's just a fish. Everything is more
in a natural way.
In a natural way. The natural, the food.
The natural flavors.
Is respecting natural flavors.
Yes.
And that's because we didn't have access to a ton of different things to add to. But that's how we understand the flavors of the food. You know,
I think that's important. I just realized something. How many times do I see on the menu Chilean sea bass? It's all over you. You must have lots of sea bass there, because we see a lot of it here.
It is.
It was.
The question is, if we go to if in Chile it will say Chilean sea bass or no. And
That's right. Yeah.
That's a question they always ask me.
Yeah. It's not going to say Los Angeles sea bass. Right? It's gonna say, let's talk about the New World versus Old World stuff, because I think it's important. We were just talking about it earlier off camera that the New World has a couple of definitions. One of them is sort of a character style, sort of the old socks, dirty shoes kind of character, and then there's the lifestyle of the New World versus the Old World, which is we get to do whatever we want in America, and it's also the attraction to a lot of European winemakers to come to America and Chile and Argentina, for that matter, to grow whatever they feel like and try this.
Yeah.
So how do you position Chile? How do you define the New World versus the Old World for Chile? I define the New World for Chile as it's an open palate. We can test new grapes, and we can call it Maipo if we want to, even though we grew, Tanat, or we grew, Syrah. It doesn't matter to us. So how do you define Chile as the New World in that definition? Or do you define it as a character, this sort of pedigreed character, this old school character? Which way do you look at it?
Yeah, we think that Chile has the old school character because we learn a lot about the old world. Mm-hmm. At the beginning, we want to make wines like the old world, but nowadays we understand more about our country, more about our terroirs. So we use the know-how of learning about the old world, but nowadays we are very proud about we have in our terroirs. So that's the thing, and we have we are looking for a new place or a new home for the varieties, because at the end we can plant, like you said, we can plant what we want where we want, but we know, like Sebastian said, Limarí is a valley that grows because of the viticulture, and we are looking for produce a very good Chardonnay, and this is for us a new home for the Chardonnay in the Limarí. So we are looking for a specific place, or for the nut, or the south of Chile, for the different varieties that we are looking for.
Even that explanation made me feel like, gee, I wonder what that Chardonnay tastes like from up there, because you said it's great for Pinot Noir and the coast of this.
But look, what I'm going to tell you is probably the biggest contradiction in terms of that Chardonnay. Tastes very Burgundian, which in a way that I'm going to say at the end, you have the freedom to find that old world terroir, but we have the freedom to look for it, because we don't have the history. So at the end, we were planting Chardonnay here, and then we found a place and has temperature, the soil type. So now we are looking for different areas but at the end, you're always looking for the best terroir.
That's it.
And you're looking, and you said it about the person who find that mythical place that doesn't exist, which is right grape, right soil, right weather, but also that personal thing. And Chile allows to experiments, to find and to look for that, and that's amazing.
It's funny you said that, because I was going to say that, because let's just take Oregon in the United States, which has become the destination for many French Burgundian makers. But prior to Oregon, and that you're talking about the late '80s, early mid '80s, where they started to experiment. But up until even not that long ago, I would go to a wine tasting. I would taste all kinds of Pinot Noir from Santa Ynez and Santa Barbara, whatever, and they were always trying to compare it to Burgundy.
Yeah.
Very Burgundian, and you don't want that.
No,
right?
no. That's what I say. We felt I want to describe it, but at the end,
but then he's like,
you don't want.
Chilean.
But it's a Chilean. It's 360 days of sun.
Yeah, wow.
It's in the desert. That's not Burgundy. Again, the minerality. Again, you're looking because your knowledge, but at the end, this being so narrow, so the high, the low, the close to the ocean, and we still finding
maybe the feminine, the delicate character you are referring to, in other words, is very authentic. We call it Limarian, and that's we want to get to a point where, this feels like my Chagua. That's have another definite part. The typical you read about would be the picking conditions, all those things and we hope as winemaker express that terroir. That's the business, because it changes every year. To do with the experience and who they've talked to and involved with, not necessarily doing, but in the recent, you have this from all around the world. So,
yeah,
I think in Bordeaux.
Don't
just those guys down the street that classified growth. How do that?
In my career, I start like we said in the fair. So as a wine can do twice and harvest in the year. So I start in Chile and then I go to Bordeaux to make a harvest.
Over there, you Mr. Rashid
have joint venture between
you.
Yeah. And Alma Viva is the